Your full name, just and your title.
My name is John Elder. I'm a professor of public health at San Diego State University and adjunct professor at the School of Medicine at UCSD.
Can you again briefly summarize some of your main points that you touched upon in the presentation?
Yeah, I think this conference is about environmental health and issues related to specific problems that Brawley and El Centro and surrounding communities have in the Imperial Valley. And what we're looking at, especially what I've tried to study, is asthma control. And we looked at asthma control from a variety of perspectives. One is from the clinical management. Do kids have access to doctors? Are they able to be seen when they need to be seen? Do they go in for regular appointments? Do they get the appropriate medications, inhalers, peak flow meters? And do they and their parents know how to use these things? That's just one level, though. Then we have to look at the homes, we have to look at neighborhoods, and we have to look at entire communities. And finally, what's unique about Imperial County is the regional issues, the Salton Sea and how it's drying and how some of the dust is blowing up from the Salton Sea and the contaminants that are in that. And the border crossing, the Mexicali-Calexico border crossing. This community just has so many things that it has to deal with that makes it a very, very unique place in the United States.
I really like what you said about this conference being a first step towards positive action. Can you touch upon that once more?
Yes. Well, what we've done today, what we're doing today, is we're getting all the most recent updates from the state, from the federal government, from local advocacy groups, from child advocacy groups, and even from kids themselves as to what they're doing, how they're taking on some of these asthma-related issues, environmental health issues, and bringing together all of the experts and the committed people, the community activists, in one room and getting different perspectives and bringing all this motivation and energy together. However, we have to remember this is just a first step. This is not the most important step, but this is where we start. Now we all have to go back to our communities, to our universities, to our government offices, to our neighborhoods, to our families. And we have to bring these messages back, and we have to keep this momentum going. Because again, two things we have to remember: without ongoing momentum, without a long sustained effort, we can't be effective. Secondly, without partnerships that can start with the leadership that's represented at this conference, but has to go well beyond with the agricultural industry, with EPA, with other people. These partnerships are going to be very important for long-term and broad change.
Now, I really liked also what you mentioned about the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, about the regulations. If you can pitch that up one more time.
Yeah, well, with the EPA and with state offices that are responsible for environmental health, we have to make sure regulations are up to date, that new practices and new changes in perhaps border crossing regulations, those sorts of things, that these all factor into the regulations so that the regulations really reflect what the issues are. And then secondly, the regulations that are on the books, we want to make sure they're enforced, that people follow these regulations in terms of whatever contamination or environmental impact that various factors might have. So there's two levels. One is putting the regs on the books, and then secondly, making sure we follow.
Okay. Mr. Flores, can you share with me what your thoughts are about this conference, its overall scope and purpose? Is it meeting its goal, or what do you think?
I think at this point, being the 6th annual, it kind of serves the purpose of year after year reminding the community that their voice in as far as trying to be an advocate for change for their environment, bettering the conditions for not only for themselves but for future generations. So I think here at Brawley High School, it's my first time I work with such people directly with Comité Cívico as far as the summit. So I think for me it exceeded my expectations.
And what do you think are some of the points? I mean, they're all important, but what are some of the points that jumped out that really need attention right now?
I think the points that drastically got my attention were the issue with the Salton Sea, that as years go by, it's more and more of a hazard, especially for the north end, if not the entire county. Likewise, another one that I was part of was the diesel and some of the issues of idling trucks, idling trains, etc. And I was not aware that Brawley is one of the worst when it comes to pollution having to do with diesel. So it drew my attention because my entire family is here. So it's something we would have to address in the future.
In regards to the Environmental Protection Agency, do we feel that they're doing an effective job?
I truly think so because they're reaching out to the community. They have a mission of making a visible difference in the community, and I have a straight line relationship with Region 9 EPA and Priyanka Patak, and she has sent many STEM individuals, which are scientists, technology individuals, engineers, and mathematicians that can relate the information to the students at Brawley High School or Brawley in general, and they can apply it not just theory, but what is actually affecting them. I think the issue more of not getting enough done has to do with, you could say, I can say it, I don't work for the EPA, as far as bureaucracy at times or certain people at Congress that might want to hold back because they might try to balance the economy at the same time while they're trying to improve the community as far as the environment goes. So it's a tough balance to try to even out, but in the long run, I think the health of all Americans should be at the forefront and not just dollar signs.
Sir, can you tell me just a little bit about the importance of the community being involved in activities such as this one?
Well, the community is great because this movement of Comité Cívico and the Health Summit is more or less a bilingual movement. Being in the Imperial Valley, we have a large Hispanic community that at times do not get their needs addressed due to a language barrier. So having the easy access of translation here, they open the doors for the entire community to come, not only with adults, but we had a large influx of 70 to 80 students. Obviously, the majority being from Brawley High School because it's in Brawley, but there were also students here from Imperial, El Centro, Southwest, etc.
Any concluding thoughts that you want to share with us?
Well, I'm just fortunate to be part of this 6th annual, and maybe for the next year, we could plan an even greater event. There's a lot of great dignitaries that stepped up and came down all the way to the Imperial Valley, and hopefully we can continue those partnerships. And with nurturing individuals like that, they can better the community for all of us.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Your title, please.
Rey Leon, Executive Director and founder of the San Joaquin Valley Latino Environmental Advancement and Policy Project.
So what are your thoughts about this conference?
Well, this is a really important conference for not just the community of Brawley, but the whole region of Imperial County and the Coachella Valley, due to the fact that the community needs to know the information on how pollution is impacting our lives, is impacting our families, is impacting our respiratory system, and is a threat to our children. So that we could be informed citizens or residents, advocates, leaders to improve the environmental health of our community, the region, right? And that's what this conference provides. And it provides a real face of the agency, you know, speaking to the programs that they've been developing, many of which have developed after many, many years of a lot of hard work from environmental justice leaders. You know, I'm but one of them that has been working on it for minimum 10 years, actually 13 years. And it's important for the community to know that history, for the community to know how their government is functioning and how it processes enforcement, how it processes concerns, and how it is important to be active and participating, you know, in the democratic process to ensure that the agencies that protect our environment are supposed to protect our environment are respecting the policies, the laws that we've been able to advance thus far. Because one thing is that just because a policy exists doesn't mean it's being respected by either industry, and sometimes government ignores, many of those issues. So we need to be there, vigilant, paying attention, and active, participating.
Okay, so what can we expect the audience to do once they go home?
Well, first and foremost, we would want them to talk to their relatives, their families, of what they learned here today, right? Of course, there's some programs that are to provide resources to, say, purchase a plug-in hybrid, an electric vehicle, and it'll, subsidize a good amount of that cost. That is something that hopefully they share with the community, right? That's information, as one of the participants today mentioned, not often arrives to the ears of our folks in the neighborhood. But, and that was one of the statements that we shared, or I shared after moderating the panel, was that we're all ambassadors. Just because my family is not here doesn't mean that they're not represented. Just because my community is not here doesn't mean they're not being represented, so long as I am going to be active and vociferous with the information, right? These type of convenings we organize out there in the San Joaquin Valley as well. Many times I organize them because I'm in a presentation and I hear somebody speak, share a presentation, a workshop, and I pull them and I bring them to my communities, right? That's the stuff we got to do, and we got to just make sure that we're active, that we're organizing, that we're participating, in this case with Comité Cívico, and getting those petitions signed to stop a pollution industrial source from establishing, or to stop a pollution industrial source from polluting more.
Okay, sir. Okay, awesome. Sir, can you give me your full name and your title, please?
Sure. Matthew Tejada, Tejada. I'm the Director of the Office of Environmental Justice for the Environmental Protection Agency.
So what are your thoughts about this conference?
I think this conference is great. I mean, there's a lot of places around the United States where there are communities with environmental justice concerns and problems with industry and relationships with their local government and state government, and I've never seen anything like this, where there's this many people that show up. You have such great support from local elected officials. You have support from a lot of the different agencies here in the state of California. We're here as EPA. I mean, it's just a really great example of what some positive community-led leadership can really bring to an area that has some real tremendous problems, and how people are really working to address those problems.
From what you have heard so far, what are some of the issues, or what are some of the main points that have jumped up at you?
Well, I mean, I think Imperial Valley and far Southern California has some obvious, real challenging issues. Obviously, the stuff rotating around the border, dealing with Mexico and some of the communities in Mexico, where this really is looked at as a bigger region than just the United States Imperial Valley, but the bigger area around the Southern California border area brings a lot of significant challenges to addressing a lot of public health and environmental concerns. Obviously, there's some very particular concerns here in the Imperial Valley with the Salton Sea, a lot of the truck traffic, a lot of the potential pollution sources coming from agricultural industry. So there's a really unique mix here that makes this a very challenging area. But again, that's why having an organization like Comité Cívico and having the support of a lot of the folks at the local level is so important to actually try to positively address some of those problems.
Now, you're with the EPA, and I've been asking people about what they think, the effectiveness of the EPA is, and they're giving you guys a passing grade.
Okay.
So what can you tell me about the role of the EPA and how they are working together with the community of Raleigh or Imperial County?
Sure. So we really look at our role here in a few different ways. One, it's what can we bring as the federal government, what can we bring as the regulatory agency for the environment for the federal government. So if that's something to do with permitting or something to do with enforcement or compliance issues, then we can apply just our traditional regulatory tools in a place like Imperial Valley. But really, from the community context and from a lot of the problems that are present here in the Imperial Valley, I think the more important role that our agency can playing is the one that is playing here in Imperial Valley, where we really help to bring people together. We help to bring in more of the federal agencies, to bring along the state, to bring along folks at the local level, and also to really be a support for the community, because we really see in a place like Imperial Valley, where there's so many environmental justice concerns, so many communities that are struggling with some really big issues, the community really needs to be at the center of the conversation. It needs to be driven by the community, and so we see our role as really helping to support the community and those community efforts to keep them at the center of the conversation.
Any last thoughts, sir?
No, I mean, this is, whether it's the Ivan Network or the Leadership Summit, Comité Cívico, there are some tremendous problems here in Imperial Valley, but there are some tremendous people and some tremendous organizations working to address them. So even though there's a lot of challenges left, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in Imperial Valley, the folks here are so far ahead just because they do have such great local leadership, they have such great organizations working on it, and they have the beginnings of things that really can start to address some of those great big issues that are out there.
My name is Shreyas Jutkar, and I'm a policy associate with the Coalition for Clean Air.
Can you spell your name, please?
Shrayas, and the last name Jatkar.
Got it. I would hate to misspell it. Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, can you tell me your thoughts on this conference?
I'm having a great time. This is my first visit to Brawley and really Imperial County, and I'm really excited and glad to be here because I've been doing research about a program that started here that's all about making sure the community is engaged in solving environmental problems and really connected to the public agencies that are responsible for making sure that there's good air quality and adequate public health standards. So for me, this is a great time to actually see firsthand some of the conditions, but also the people who have made this program so successful. So I'm enjoying the event and enjoying getting to hear from everybody here today.
And what would be your main interest for you being here and trying to make a difference?
Well, my work these days is focused on cleaning up the transportation sector. And what I heard today is that Imperial County and the valley here, this is a major area where freight traffic goes through to haul goods across the border, but all through California and probably even out west. And those emissions really need to be cut down. We need to make sure that the transportation sector is not as big of a contributor to our public health problems and climate change as well. So one of the things that I've been really impressed with at the conference is that focus on, I went to a workshop on diesel and cleaning up those vehicles and switching to different fuels or new technologies that can make sure that this freight sector that we still need to import, export all these goods that we use every day, we need to still do that, but make sure that we're not imperiling our public health at that cost.
Right. And so you come from Sacramento, right?
Yes.
So I guess it was quite a motivation for you to drive or fly over here. So what were your intentions? What's your goal what do you want to achieve by coming here?
Well, I was invited to come and speak, and my goal in doing so about this Identifying Violations Affecting Neighborhoods program, or the IVAN program. This is a fantastic program that gets community residents involved in reporting the environmental problems they experience or observe in their communities. But what we know is that not enough people are aware of this program yet, or not enough people are using this program yet. So really the goal was to make sure that I, as clearly as possible, explain how the program works, how community residents can get engaged and plug into that program, because that information is absolutely critical to the public agencies that, again, are responsible for cleaning up the air and making sure that we protect public health. But community members absolutely have a vital role to play in that. And so my piece here was kind of connecting those dots, especially with this particular program.
Any last thoughts, sir?
No, that's it.
Awesome.